Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. You may know me from Comic Tropes, but this channel is Comic Tropes After Dark, where we do all the fun stuff like live streams and bad movie review shows, more of a focus on indie comics, sometimes some interviews. Anyway, this is a live show where we're going to talk about the week in comic book news. We're going to review some of the latest comics that came out. It's going to be a fun time. Then we'll do a cool down where I'm just going to sort of draw. I'll really focus on inking tonight, and I'll talk about some of the stuff I've been up to and answer questions of people in the chat. That's where the best jokes tend to come from, not from this old chunk of coal. I think Norm Macdonald once called himself that. I don't know where that really came from, but yeah, let me just make one little edit to something. Was really getting the show prepped right up to the last minute. What did I want to say? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to say hello to all of you in the chat room. I'm going to throw up a little ticker so that folks can see where we're at in the show. A lot of topics tonight, a lot of comics to review. Should be fun. I'll just warn you right up front. A lot of Marvel and DC stuff. I always try to mix in when I can, indie or just alternative press, manga. It's a lot of Marvel and DC this week. It just is what it is. Some of it just is interesting. I think we'll have some good conversations about it. So that's why I'm including it. Hello, Andy. Thanks again for your help from the flood damage and everything. Norm got it from Billy Joe Shaver. Billy Joe Shaver, huh? Okay. Yes, I go from comics dad to comics daddy. Not actually a dad, but you know what? My nephew still wished me a happy Father's Day, and that really made me feel nice. So that was super nice. Tell you what, let's get some news up on the screen. This one's got me thinking. All right. What are we going to talk about? We're going to start with some DC news. Got a bunch of DC news. I guess I didn't realize that DC did this, but they have a YouTube channel. I knew that. And they did a live stream this week where they announced some of their upcoming titles that are spinning out of an event that they have throughout all those Batman titles. And there's already a lot of Batman books, right? Nightwing, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Batgirl, a couple for Batman, a lot of that. But I like the angle that they have for this. This is going to start in September. And these titles, at least the first two, focused on non-superhero people. As somebody that really loved that book, Gotham Central, if you ever read that, Greg Rucka was one of the writers. Ed Brubaker was one of the writers, focused on the police in the city. Really took the world of Batman and put it on an even more grounded playing field. And I was like, I really find this interesting. Anyway, so here's the books that they announced during this live stream. Gotham General, #1. I don't think I've ever seen this in comics. I've definitely seen it a lot in TV. But yeah, Greg Rucka, Rosa Ekdahl, and Patricio Angel are going to do a book about the medical staff at a big hospital in Gotham. That's an interesting idea. You're dealing with life and death. I don't know if it'll translate to comics as well as it translates to TV. We've had a lot of good medical shows on TV. There's a reason it's engaging, because you're dealing with life and death. But I don't feel like I've seen a real hospital-based medical book in superhero comics before anyway. We've had characters like, Night Nurse or something, but it's not quite the same. Anyway, I find it really interesting. I find that a really interesting idea. I hope it's good. There's also Gotham Central #1. And, they've just got so many crazy things going on in Gotham right now with the commissioner is a supervillain, Vandal Savage. The mayor is technically a villain, Poison Ivy, turning sort of into an anti-hero, but still. And that's taking a lot of Gotham's resources. But Gordon a beat cop these days, and we're going to just see like how the beat cops handle things. Thank you. Things are progressing well there. Look at me, just maybe I should adjust my layout so that I'm not in the bottom corner and getting covered up by my super chats. I didn't think about that. Things are going well. They're just going slowly, but we've agreed to a contract with a company that seems good, and meeting with project managers to choose materials and stuff. Yeah, the Pitt Gotham General is a crossover that is both possible and an excellent idea. Not bad at all. You know what? This is really bothering me. Let me do something real fast. Whoop. Hi, I'm up here now. Now I can do a super chat and not get covered up. I'm not willing to just say it'll be perfect, but I love the idea of it. Anyway, so they're going to do Gotham General about a hospital, Gotham Central about just the beat cop police. And that's by Christopher Cantwell and Jacob Phillips. I'm a big fan of Jacob Phillips. And then something a little more mysterious. Batman Streets of Gotham. It's by Matt Fraction and Mariko Tamaki. Good talent. Just saying that that's something coming out in October. I don't know. Maybe just more Batman. Maybe it's something that they don't want to give away yet. I don't know. I don't know yet. Sometimes there's a third Batman monthly. We've traditionally had Detective Comics, Batman, and sometimes Batman Shadow of the Bat. I don't know. Gotham is not a subdivision of Pittsburgh. If I remember right, Gotham City is canonically in New Jersey, the very southern end of New Jersey, and Metropolis is just across the river in the northern part of Delaware. So they're both really close to New York City, but I'm pretty sure that that is still canon, that Gotham and Metropolis are Jersey and Delaware. Pretty nerdy stuff, huh? That's an interesting idea. Could Streets of Gotham be from a criminal's point of view? If it's not, that's a darn good idea. Maybe just a miniseries, maybe an anthology. I don't know. 10th anniversary is what I'm currently making for Comic Tropes. I'll talk about that after I do reviews later tonight. But thanks for asking. TV shows can afford to hire medical consultants to keep the med facts somewhat close to accurate. Comics companies can't usually afford that luxury. Good point. It requires more research on the part of the writers. That's probably why it hasn't been done. That's also probably why books like She-Hulk and Daredevil, even though they're lawyers, we don't usually get too deep into them practicing law in the courtroom. It might be the culmination or a subplot in a story here and there, but it isn't like the absolute focus. But I think it could still work very well. You know, like if I was Marvel or DC, I'd seriously look at hiring somebody that has worked in the medical field or the legal field and has become an author and see if they would want to do a comic in that world, because it's dealing with people's lives. It's really, really interesting. All right, I'm going to continue on because there's a lot of weird stuff for DC. This one that you're seeing right here, I'm especially interested in. Let's dig into it. So DC announced 3 new titles for their Next Level brand. They are all going to debut September 2nd. Not too far away, really. Yep, exactly. Charles Soule was one of those sort of rare instances of the expert using some of his background to inform the story, and I like that. I like that a lot. So we're starting with Legion of Superheroes. DC has not used Legion of Superheroes in a very long time. There was a brief dalliance when Brian Michael Bendis joined DC, but even that was quite a while ago now. Legion of Superheroes, very popular in the 70s, pretty popular again in the 90s, but we're getting to the point. It's been like 30 years since we've really had a popular Legion of Superheroes title. If you don't know, it's a team of superheroes. It's set in the far future. So it's, the equivalent of a cosmic story that you'd get with Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. But it's really cool. It's really cool. Anyway, this is going to sort of be a new origin where the team is getting assembled by a future version of Brainiac, good Brainiac, to solve a murder as well as just sort of deal with a very corrupt society that's now on many planets. There are aliens and I made a misspelling here, but look at the creative team. Joshua Williamson, who's been crushing it lately. Hayden Sherman, huge fan right here of Hayden Sherman. They are doing amazing stuff. Thank you. I do have some Mountain Dew, Diet Mountain Dew. Thank you very much. I can understand that concern, Black Phoenix, but again, it has been nearly 30 years since there was a successful ongoing, and I think that's asking a lot of an audience to remember all that stuff or to refer to it. Maybe they'll find a way through time travel shenanigans to slowly build in some of that old continuity. Sorry, I dropped my phone. But I think because it's been so long, you kind of need to start fairly fresh. I really do. Nope, I'm going to explain what's going to happen with Absolute Wonder Woman in just a second. Hayden Sherman art brings me right to whatever I'm reading. I'll have to do an episode on them at some point. I remember on this very show reading weekly the book that they did with Scott Snyder, Wildfires, and being blown away by the art. And it's been a real pleasure getting to see that artist evolve. So Sherman actually posted that they've been drawing 2 books for several months. People don't know this, but it's just because this got announced is starting soon. It's been in the works for a while. And they've been drawing both Absolute Wonder Woman and Legion of Superheroes and plan to stay with both of them. 2 books a month. 2 books a month. There's very few artists in comics that can work at that pace. But it's very cool to see. It's very cool to see. I'm looking forward to it. It's a new take. I'm mostly excited about the art, but I've been enjoying a lot of what Joshua Williamson has been writing. So it's a good team. It justifies some excitement. Oh, Dark Patterns was incredible. Just incredible. Yeah, an art machine, the Dan Mora method. Yeah, as far as like modern day, you've got like John Romita Jr. has proven he can do it. Dan Mora can. Hayden Sherman apparently can. It's people that are very, very confident in their artwork. And to be fair, sometimes they ink themselves, sometimes they ink digitally now, but also sometimes these artists have line art that is open to interpretation by inkers. That would be an interesting thing to talk about, because there's not too many professional inkers around anymore, but we'll have an inker story later tonight. Also announced, that's one of the 3 books. Kyle Higgins and Danielle Di Nicolo. I don't know the pronunciation very well. I'm sure it's Italian. Anyway, it's the team behind Power Rangers Shattered Grid, which was a humongous success for Boom Studios. They're reteaming to launch Teen Titans. This time it's got Jason Todd's Red Hood as the leader of a new group of teen heroes that need to be trained up. Interesting idea to put Jason Todd in that kind of a role. Probably good for the character in terms of making them... They still need some rehabilitation in a way. I think Kyle Higgins on Teen Titans is a really good fit. He's obviously written teen books and younger superheroes, so I think he's definitely super capable of it. This will make me sound old now. To me, Jason Todd being alive again feels very new, and I don't think it was a great idea. But you know what? It's done. You might as well make the most of it. And then finally, for these 3, We've got a new version of Doom Patrol, and that's by Darcy Van Polgeest. And very excited about this, Nico Henrichon on art. I very recently was raving about Nico's art for the book he did with Brian K. Vaughan, Spectators. Fantastic book. One of my top 10 of the previous year. Very, very good book. You may have read or seen their artwork in Pride of Baghdad as well, also with Vaughan. But yeah, great artist. Great artist. Anyway, they're going to do Doom Patrol, and this version of Doom Patrol is a little more down and out. So they're going to start by taking on like Heroes for Hire type work, which will probably get them into some very weird story territory. But that is just the basic premise to get things going. Doom Patrol, the greatest superhero show of all time. You know, I never saw the live action TV show. I don't know what platform it was on, but whenever it was on, I didn't have it. But I do have HBO Max, and I think it's on there, so maybe I should check it out. You know, if they were going to kill him, I just sort of feel like that held more meaning for Batman's development than it did for having him be one of, at this point, like 5 or 6 Robins. That's a lot of Robins that they've got. That's all. It is on HBO Max. Okay, so I'll have to check that out sometime. I'll have to carve out some time. We'll talk about TV at the end, too. We always have fun, like whoever's still watching the show by that point, chatting about TV. This is not a surprise, but it is, I think, a smart and nice development. The compact comics are obviously a huge success for DC, and all the other publishers have been following suit. It's a great price point, a great value. The size of it is the same as manga, basically. So I think it's really working very well. It's a really attractive format. In fact, as far as American comics go, I would say it's like the best innovation in the last like 10 years, coming up with this size and this price point. But anyway, so what are they doing next? DC announced that they're expanding their compact comics line. They're going to continue, reprinting their best selling titles and their, most acclaimed work, but they're also going to go into some kid friendly titles. A bunch of these are reprints, but haven't been like in print for a long time, actually. And they're priced a little bit less, $7.99, $7.99, even better. This is a great entry point for kids that are like people that probably read things like Dog Man or Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Guts by Raina Telgemeier, things like that. And now they want something a little more adult, but they're not like ready to jump to, some DC event. This is a nice idea. So they're starting with Batman the Dark Knight, and this is a reprint, if you remember, of the comic that they had running simultaneous to the 90s cartoon. We've got artists like Kelly Puckett, Martin Pascoe, Ty Templeton, and Rick Burchett were both fantastic. Probably should be talked about a lot more. Really great artists. It feels like a no-brainer. I think it'll do well. I really do. A few others that they've got. A Superman Man of Tomorrow. Again, that's based on the look and the mythology that they created for the cartoon, the animated series. Remember, this one had Paul Dini involved, as well as Scott McCloud, pretty important person in comics. Same size, same date, same price. We've also got a Justice League volume, a Teen Titans volume. Some of them like a little more pages, like 208. Some of them a little less, 144. Basically, it's either a collection of 6 to 7 issues of that old title. But these haven't been in print in a long time, but it's evergreen stuff. It's not tied to any of that. Are DC Marvel considering making new comics for this smaller digest format? I'm sure they're thinking about it. And I think that would be a really good idea to give people something new. Right now, it's like, oh, guess what? I'm newer to comics. I've never read Watchmen or, Batman the Dark Knight Returns or Green Lantern Far Sector, for that matter. $10, yeah, I'll give it a try. But I think something new in that format. I also think potentially reformatting some of their webtoons into that size and price point would be very popular, because it's very much like that sort of manga to like tankobon, or sort of like weekly bit of comics to like a collected edition that I think would be very popular with people. DC also announced 5 titles for young adults. These aren't compact comics, just sort of related because it's for young adults. The one that interested me is a new idea, The Manifestations of Bobby Park. And that's about a Korean American who develops an acne serum for himself, but it gives him a muscular extrovert personality, and that causes issues. So that's definitely like the teen version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We've got Supergirl's Superheroes, where a bunch of the pet superheroes look for missing laundry of the Justice League. Princesses of the DC Universe, all-girl super team. Green Lantern Destiny follows a young Jon Stewart, and Gotham Academy First Year follows Gotham Police in training. So, several things that could help, get kids from reading really little kid books to potentially reading comics. I think it's a good idea. Well, I mentioned it briefly, Mike, in my episode about Norm Brayfogle 2 weeks ago. The cross-gen artists all had a clause where they have to get paid royalties, which are apparently better than Marvel and DC's standard royalties. So Marvel acts like they couldn't do it. They could definitely do it if they wanted to, but they're not especially motivated business-wise. I think that they would sell well. I really agree with you there. I really do. A lot of those books were quite strong, and had some great talent behind it. Guys like Barry Windsor Smith and Jeff Johnson that are timeless. But yeah. So I think that's smart. DC Compact Comics Adventures is sort of the sub brand, but I think that the price point and the goal, really smart. Here's a Black Label book that could be interesting. And I wanted to talk about Black Label a little because I'm curious what DC's doing with it. But first, let me give you this news. This is a book called Superman the Stranger. It's going to be a 6-issue Black Label comic book series, launches in September, written and illustrated by Wes Craig. A lot of people know him from still Deadly Class, Kaya, create her own stuff. Moving over to do a DC story. I would enjoy talking about cross-gen. It was an interesting business model. Maybe could have worked better, but it was a good idea. All right, so what is this? Set in an Art Deco-inspired 1938 metropolis. In other words, back when Superman was first created. The series reimagines Superman's earliest adventures through a modern storytelling lens while drawing heavily from the visual language of DC's golden age of comic books and the Fleischer Studios Superman cartoons, which are fantastic. You got to watch them sometime. Those Fleischer cartoons, they put so much work into it. Here's something Wes Craig said about it. The version I love the most, and the one that I think strangely reflects our modern world best, is the original. You strip away the extra powers, you strip away Ma and Pa Kent and Smallville and Krypton. Those were all things that came later. You boil it down to that explosive first issue of Action Comics, and you have this vital, powerful myth of a brash young man with incredible powers fighting against a corrupt city. That's the story I want to tell. Metropolis has definitely gotten prettier and prettier over the years, but you go back to that Golden Age Superman stuff, and the earliest issues are all him going up against slumlords and corrupt car dealerships and, people in government that are on the take and organized crime. And it was just like, there was some real anger, I think, there by Siegel and Schuster at the world around them, the modern world. And so I think that's kind of a cool idea, actually, to refocus and take away all these things that we sort of rely on that are almost almost member berries for us when we see a new Superman story and focus on the original idea. I like that idea enough that I wanted to include it in the news. Yeah, Morrison is also like made, but Morrison also loves the Silver Age stuff, you know? So it's been a blend of golden and silver with a lot of Morrison's writing. They like the sci-fi and wacky stuff a bit, which I do too. But I love the idea of going back to a simpler Superman just fighting against corruption. There's going to be some variant covers. This one's by Wes Craig, but Dave Johnson, Goran Parlov, and Ethan Young, 3 fantastic artists. I like the idea. I like the idea quite a bit. Golden Age Superman is an FDR liberal with more action. Action is the key word there. It came out in Action Comics, and he does not sit around. You know, he is constantly terrifying the criminals. He doesn't really like just beat them to a pulp or kill anybody, but he definitely scares the shit out of them, like jumping around from high distances while carrying them or throwing them into barrels of tar, all sorts of crazy stuff. Here's a quick one about a DC book coming up. They're publishing a horror anthology in time for Halloween, and a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek title here, I guess. DC's Quoth the Raven, Whatever. So we're going to mix some Edgar Allan Poe with characters like Raven from the Titans. They're going to follow their horror-themed characters. Raven, Swamp Thing, Constantine, Deadman, Zatanna. You could argue just their magic characters. Creators include writers Tini Howard, Patrick R. Young, artists like Isaac Goodhart, I'm a huge fan of him, Francesco Tomaselli, and writer-artists like Domo Stanton, Nika Vacueva, and Rebecca Mock. So that's an 80-page one-shot, September 30th, $9.99. Pretty good value these days, since, you know, a normal comic is maybe 22 pages of story for $5. You're getting more than twice that. You're getting almost 4 times that for just twice the price. It's a good value if you like any of those creators or those characters. So I'm trying to put some of this stuff on people's radar so that you can potentially go to your comics shop and have them pre-order it before final order cutoff. It's becoming more and more important that we let our comic stores know what to order to help the sales on those books. Switching to Marvel stuff. This is a pretty good way to get Spider-Man out in front of people. USA Today and Marvel Comics are teaming up. Now, it is digital, basically, but USA Today has something called their Play Digital Entertainment Hub. And now that will have access to digital Marvel Comics. Play will be the exclusive home for the new vertically formatted Spider-Man Today Infinity comic series. It's going to run for 48 weeks, so almost a full year, beginning this past week, June 16th. New issues every Wednesday. But that should probably get it in front of a bunch of new eyeballs. Readers are also going to be able to have about 1,000 curated Marvel comics, old school, modern, that kind of stuff. Get them into reading Marvel comics made. The Spider-Man Today is by, I said L. Ewing. I meant Al Ewing and Todd Knock. And I think some covers by Nick Bradshaw, but I'm not sure. You went to the last days of Things from Another World. It was crushingly sad. I went there as a little kid to buy X-Men. 40 years sacrificed at the altar of private equity. Yeah, if you guys don't remember, this was in the news a couple weeks ago. Dark Horse owns the Things from Another World stores, and they're closing them all. So, yeah, that's a bummer. Just taking off my sweatshirt. Give me one moment, and then I'll keep moving. I like the Muppets, but I especially like the description of what they're going to have in this comic. sometimes it's depressing to think of like how some of these conglomerates like Warner Brothers or Disney own so many things. But other times I go, well, it does give you access to some new mashups that I can't help but be amused by. So September, the Muppets come to the Marvel Universe for the first time in The Muppets Take the Marvel Universe. It's a one-shot that's celebrating the 50th anniversary of The Muppet Show. 50th year. Here's one story. Rolf the dog is kidnapped by Mojo to help launch his new streaming service. The Muppets are going to team up with various Marvel superheroes to rescue him. That's a story by Chip Zdarsky and Pete Woods. Nice creative team. That's a good fit. Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker welcome Bruce Banner and Hank Pym to Muppet Labs. Kyle Starks, hilarious writer. Artist Mike Henderson, good. The Swedish Chef helps Doctor Strange find a cure for Clea's mystery illness. That's by Ashley Allen and Paco Medina. Don't know quite what to make of that one yet. Pigs in Space. That was this Star Trek parody that they made back then. They're going to meet Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Mackenzie Cadenhead and David Baldion make that. Oh, I really like... oh, no. I guess actually, like, I like the Matt Fraction run is the one I'm thinking of, but I do like a lot of Zdarsky stuff. If he's allowed to be funny, he's especially good. And it's also got stories, Marvel says, by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Adam F. Goldberg, E.J. Sue. He's often here in the chat. Attila Fabio. I think this sounds like a fun idea. I don't know why exactly I like Muppets as much as I do. I mean, it's funny, but it's sort of so weird that I have this affection for these, puppets, marionette puppets, or Muppets, if you will. But I do like them. They're very well defined personality wise. So even when you get like reboots with new writers and stuff like that, the characters still feel very authentic. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know which story EJ's doing, but yeah, I do like the Muppets. And here's another weird mashup. So Marvel's going to follow up Alien versus Avengers, which was actually, in my opinion, quite good. It's dark, but that's the fact that it's an Alien story. I mean, Alien is horror, and Alien versus Avengers was definitely horror. But they're going to follow that up with Alien versus X-Men. Wait till I get to, the last part of this news. There's a cool little twist to this. Written by Kieran Gillen, illustrated by Geraldo Borges. Very talented people. Good. Glad that Marvel's putting some top people on this. The X-Men go into space to retrieve something called the Phoenix Egg. I don't know exactly what that is, but they return to Earth with deadly cargo. Ooh. I'm going to make one little edit here. There. I just shifted to the side so that I wasn't blocking the bullet point as much. The series is also going to feature a 4-part bonus story by Chris Claremont. It's going to have Kitty Pryde hunted by both the Xenomorph aliens and the Brood. And the Brood was definitely a bit of a knockoff of the Xenomorphs. So it's kind of cool that they can actually both coexist. Now, the Brood have a lot of key differences. I mean, they talk. They're a little more insect-like. But they have similar sort of like facial stuff, and they would implant like eggs into human hosts or mutant hosts, and there was always really cool stuff. Exactly, it's not Kitty's first rodeo, because there's a famous Christmas themed issue where she's alone at the X Mansion, being chased by the Brood and running through walls. I love it. I'm kind of more excited about the backup story. Chris Claremont writing Kitty Pryde and the Brood sounds good to me. So, yeah. That comes out September 16th with a cover by Ryan Stegman. I like the idea. It's kind of weird that they haven't, they being Marvel, that Marvel hasn't found a way to just sort of do an ongoing Alien or Predator book. They keep doing these mini series all the time, which makes it scattershot how much you like it. I think this will get to a complaint I have later tonight about Marvel. Just, I wish they had a little more confidence in backing a good pitch, a good idea. I think it would be really cool to see an ongoing Alien or Predator title, and maybe even a crossover between them here and there. It's fun to see them interact with Marvel characters. It is. But it also always feels like a what-if story. It never feels like it's that important. Whereas if there was an ongoing, I just feel like I could commit to that sort of continuity as long as it's, a good creative team with a cool idea behind it. And that's ultimately my biggest problem these days with Marvel Comics is, they keep doing mini-series and one-shots and cutting runs off at either 5 or 10 issues. And they're not committing to things enough. They're like their biggest hit was definitely Ultimates, and then they ended the Ultimate Universe in 2 years. And while at the time I was like, okay, that's kind of brave and bold to give a definitive ending to it, I also think that it shows that they don't have a vision or a confidence in their own stuff right now. Interesting. Yeah, Dark Horse did a lot of, not every Alien or Predator book they did was good, but they did do a lot of good. They did do a lot. I get the sense that there's either friction going on with the leadership, or CB Cebulski just doesn't really have a clear vision of what Marvel needs to be. Yeah. You are correct. Thank you for correcting me. My stupid memory. I'm such an old man. The holiday issue was with Kitty and a Nagarai. I don't know how they really pronounce it. Demon, not a brood. That's true. That's true. I remember it feeling like Alien. It felt like a haunted house type of a story, but you're right. It was a Nagarai demon, not the brood. I feel dumb that I forgot that. Thank you for correcting me. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, doy. How did I even make that mistake? What a doy. This guy, huh? I don't think so, to be honest. I really don't think the finite runs are necessarily easier to package. I think it's more like they're just sort of like throwing stuff out there and seeing if anything hits, and then they're like, if that hits, we can go back to it. But have a little more confidence. Like stick with things for a while. Let the audience build. Some of these books these days are a hit right out of the gate, right? I'll give you an example. Let me focus on me. Thank you, producer. Absolute Batman was a hit, right? But it's still growing. It's still growing. That's rare in comics. There's some other books out there. There's something newer from Kirkman that's growing. What is it? I think it's Battle Beast. Yeah, the orders for that are going up. That defies conventional comic book logic, where it tapers off and then it sort of plateaus, essentially, with little spikes and dips, but it plateaus. Some of these books are still going up, and I think sometimes you don't start with quite the numbers that you want, but if you commit to it, that audience is going to spread word of mouth, right? If I love a book, for instance, some of the books I really like are, I like Feral, I like Escape, the book by Rick Remender and Daniel Acuna. I love Derek Kurt Kim's book, Royals. These are books that I will talk about and heap praise upon constantly. And I think other people will too. Dork is a fairly recent one. I'm trying to talk about some recent books. And that word of mouth makes other people interested and get caught up. And we're seeing that there's a big audience in comics because some of these, it's actually going up. And I think Marvel could have that if they committed to a few of their ideas for a little longer. It's like, yeah, it might dip a little, but if it's good, if it's really good, the audience will find it, and it might take a little while. We're going to talk a little bit about Amazing Spider-Man because that's related to what I'm talking about. But anyway, it got me talking. Thanks for listening to me yap. We're going to keep going with some news. So this is a book that I overall like, and honestly, there's not a ton of Marvel books right now that I like. This one's maybe towards the bottom of what I do like, but I like it. After issue 10 of Infernal Hulk in August, that's the second of 3 parts of this big Hulk story that Philip Kennedy Johnson and Nick Klein are doing. Marvel has announced they're going to do 5 one-shots before launching the final chapter of this story that they're going to call Hulk War. So, writer Philip Kennedy Johnson writes all 5. It's going to launch in September with Infernal Hulk versus Wolverine. Classic matchup, but like obviously a little different because this is a pure evil Hulk. Features art by Jonas Scharf, good artist. Story continues in December with Infernal Hulk versus Fantastic Four, then versus Spider-Man, and finally versus the Avengers. So yeah, it's take the idea of something like Planet Hulk, which became World War Hulk, and it was like Hulk mad at all the heroes and just decimating them. But now take out like Banner's conscience and replace it with like an elder demon, and I'm like, okay, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. Anyway, Hulk War will follow after that, and that is all going to be drawn by Nick Klein. That's sort of why he stepped back from alternating, like writing 2 or 3 issues, having a fill-in artist. He's like, tell you what, second chapter, fill-in artists, but I'll draw all of arc 3. And I like that. It's been going on since 2023. It's a pretty good arc. It really is. It's something different. So tomorrow, X-Men Elsewhen comes out in a published format. That's the John Byrne fanfic of X-Men. It's published by Abrams Comic Arts through a licensing deal with Marvel as compared to being published by Marvel itself. And it tells the story of X-Men as though instead of John Byrne quitting his collaboration with Chris Claremont over creative differences, you get the Dark Phoenix storyline, you get Days of Future Past, and then what if John Byrne got to write and draw the story continuing from that point? Okay. So that's the idea. Well, that was originally posted as a fanfic to his message boards. Now it's coming out in print, and he gave a very rare interview. Byrne is largely retired from comics. I think he's like 75 or 76. He's getting up there. He gave some rare comments. I think that's always worth looking at because he's a pretty influential guy. He's not a perfect person, but he's pretty influential for comics. So this week, he was interviewed by The Hollywood Reporter to promote this book, and he said that he started drawing it for fun, not intended for publication, so he says it's absolutely fanfic, and then he shared it to his site, and he ultimately made 31 issues. It's a pretty big project that he did. He was drawing basically a page a day and posting it for a few years. Hey, sister, hope training with Bunker went well. Here's a quote from him. It made me feel like a young whippersnapper, he says. It brought back some of the stuff that had faded over the years. Encouraging, potentially. The first printing of 25,000 copies already sold out in pre-sales. They've already rushed a second print of 20,000 more copies. Pretty good for, a creator who hasn't done anything in comics for, I don't know, at least right around 10 years or so. The second Elsewhen volume is coming out next summer, and then the third summer after from here, or second summer from here, I should say, 2028, final volume, about 10 issues each. I'm getting it. I've looked at it on his website. I'm getting it for nostalgia's sake. I find Byrne a very annoying but talented creator, if that makes sense. He's said so many horrible things about other people in the industry, about minority groups. He said bad things about Latinas. He said bad things about trans people. It annoys me quite a bit, to be honest, quite a bit. But I'm also a guy that grew up with this, and my curiosity level is very, very high. I don't know. I don't expect it to feel like the 1980s X-Men. I don't expect that, because he didn't make it in the 1980s. You know, he made it like 15 years ago or whatever. But I think it's very interesting because he's still a tremendously influential creator in his own right, as well as specifically with X-Men. And I don't think there's a lot of examples of a professional creating fanfic. So I think I'm very curious to see that. Andy, I kind of agree. I've looked at some of these pages. The inking is fine. The coloring is okay. I would be more interested in just seeing the pencils and some lettering. But that's me. You know, it's probably a concession to what they think is the interest in the market. He, you know, it's just interesting. So I'm going to definitely check it out. And then here's his last quote that I thought was really interesting. And you can read more about his opinions and his history in that Hollywood Reporter article. He goes, "I'm starting to believe that Elsewhere is going to be my leaving in a blaze of glory." So he said, look, at this age, I'm probably not going to be doing much more in comics or anything. So this getting published is probably like his last big hurrah. And I get that. Before this, the last stuff he was doing was, you know, small runs on IDW runs of Star Trek and Angel from Buffy and Angel. And I'll be honest, I didn't think his art in those looked great. I think he was trying to do, there was too much fidelity to trying to come up with a very good likeness, but his level of detail isn't where it was in the 80s. I just didn't love it. Yeah, I remember Next Men. It had some interesting ideas, occasionally some great art. Ultimately, the story didn't interest me all that much. But yeah. Well, it's funny, you know, he says he back in the day, he was a corporate shill. You know, he said, "I'm proud to be a cog in the machine," this, that, and the other. But in this article, he says that, like, you know, he looks back and the stuff he's proudest of was the stuff he ended with, like the stuff he did on Star Trek and Angel. And he doesn't really look back as fondly on his Marvel and DC stuff. In fact, like, even though Man of Steel, his Superman reboot after Crisis, was very influential at the time, very popular, he says he wishes he had instead taken Batman and done, you know, Batman from the beginning after Crisis and let Frank Miller take Superman. I can only imagine what that would have been. Yeah, I don't think he had a full plan at the time. Anyway. Well, oh, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about Babe. I never even picked that up. But I know what you're talking about. So he's a very problematic individual. At the same time, he does tell very good stories. And the weird thing is, he's just a man full of contradictions. You know, he's said some bad things, really hateful things, you know, about trans people. But he also did create one of the first gay superheroes, and he had to do it kind of like subtly, because Jim Shooter wouldn't really allow just an out superhero. But he's said, and I think all the evidence points to it, that North Star in John Byrne's Alpha Flight was absolutely meant to be gay from the beginning. But he wasn't like some sort of, lisping, mincing parody of a gay person. And so, he's, I'm just saying that he's full of contradictions, because he can be progressive on one hand and then completely regressive and, misogynist and racist on the other. It's weird. No, that's true. That's true. And in my head, a lot of that, if it's on the LGBTQ spectrum, I think of it as an alliance, but you're right. It isn't always aligned. The guy that was the president of Marvel, Trump's friend, who's the guy that used to be the president until recently? Ron Perlman. Super right wing, right? He also has donated tons of money to people to go through transition surgery. That's something he supports. So sometimes people are, just complex. They don't. Perlmutter, not Perlman. Perlmutter. No, wait. Perlmutter was the guy before him, right? I think I was right. Perlman. No, not actor Ron Perlmutter. Was it Ike? You're right. You're right, guys. Thank you, Ike Perlmutter. It was, yeah. I conflated some stuff. It's interesting that people can have those contradictions, though. To them, it's not. To me, it is. So maybe I'm the weirdo. I don't know. I'll continue. This one drove me nuts. Greg Capullo posted this to Twitter this week. I'm just going to focus on the quotes. My longtime friend and inker, Jonathan Glapion, despite my intervention, cannot get paid for work rendered months ago for one of the big two. Hint, it ain't DC. Just outrageous, shameful, totally unacceptable. Yeah. I don't know exactly which pieces they are, to be honest. This is just meant to be representative. I don't know that it was necessarily even a collaboration between them, to be clear, because the last big thing I remember Capullo doing, with Wolverine was Tim Townsend on inks. But Glapion did his inks on DC with all that popular Batman stuff they did with Scott Snyder. Yeah, but according to Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion hasn't been paid, and this gets followed up. Glapion replied to this saying, despite turning the work in months before the deadline's given, 5 covers inked in the middle of drawing and inking my own book. Unreal. And then another follow-up where he posted, because people were talking about this, and still no reply to my email. I think that's bad if it's maybe a smaller publisher, but to hear that Marvel isn't paying people on time, that's terrible. Marvel has not issued a statement. No surprise there to me. But there is a lot of speculation that maybe it's because of Disney's recent mass layoffs. Maybe some people in some accounting departments aren't there to push the right things forward. They're not prioritizing everybody. That does ring a bell, Mike. That does ring a bell that Dustin Nguyen said something about that. And I think he said he wouldn't work for them anymore, right? Yeah, they're just a mom and pop operation. I mean, they really were all the way through into the 70s, but they're not anymore. What did Marvel do to Zoe? I'm trying to remember. I mean, I'm so happy that Zoe's just doing her own stuff, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm just putting it out there. Maybe we'll add just a little more of a voice, and someone at Marvel will go, oh, geez, we got to run this up the flagpole and get somebody to resolve this. Just terrible. Just terrible. There's no excuse for it. I have heard, I'll say, that the pay systems at Marvel are actually pretty antiquated. I think they're running on some pretty old legacy software stuff. But that's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. That's just explaining where it got started. Yeah, exactly. We'll get Reckless Ben on it. We'll get some good content, at least, of him dipping into the Marvel offices and going into Disney stockholder meetings and stuff like that. I think you're right. I think that was something like that. Like Zoe had done some sketches for designs for something. And then they took those designs, which she was sending for, like approvals to do a final version, and they used that as a variant cover. I'm pretty sure you're right. Dustin said that Marvel paid less. Well, these days I'd understand it. They're not as big as DC anymore. They were bigger than DC for decades upon decades, but the last couple of years, DC has crept ahead. Going to keep going. So, Midnight is the latest sort of big thing that Marvel announced after they were like, oh, I guess we don't have our Ultimate line anymore, which, remember, Ultimate started a little before Absolute, and then Absolute is a big hit, and Marvel's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have gotten rid of Ultimate. All right, well, now we'll make a new alternate universe called Midnight, and it'll be dark like Absolute. And it's like, the pure darkness was not the overall appeal of Absolute. It was just positioning the superheroes as underdogs to do something different. Thank you for the super chat. I met Glapion at Fan Expo, and he was completely rude to me. He was kind of homophobic towards me based off of what I was in a crop top. Well, obviously, I can't speak to any of that. Your experience is completely valid, and it's nice of you to share that. It does not excuse Marvel from not paying him, even if he is being an intolerant individual. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. That is really upsetting to hear that you went to a fan convention and had a bad experience. I'm sorry to hear that happened to you, Joey. Anyway, Midnight still might be pretty cool. I'm not going to say that it's not. It's a cool idea. But they've delayed the launch of their new horror-tinged Midnight universe by 2 months. So, Marvel's outgoing president, Dan Buckley, released a statement about it. He said, the more we talked about Midnight, the more we realized it was far more than just the birth of another new universe. Might be a little early to say that, Dan. It was on an entirely different scale creatively. A doorway to something that was not only immediately exciting, but had immense long-term promise. I'd love to think that is true. I would love that. Let's see. Anyway, it was originally announced to launch August 5th with Midnight X-Men. They've also got Midnight Fantastic Four and Midnight Spider-Man. Now all three will launch simultaneously on October 7th. And Marvel will not release any other titles that week. So they're giving that room to breathe, just 3 titles. That's a lot of real estate to give up on a comic book shelf at a store. So, yeah. You would think that a horror-tinged universe, that books like Moon Knight, Blade, Werewolf by Night, Doctor Strange, Tomb of Dracula, that these are all things that could fit there. At the same time, I do understand, X-Men and Spider-Man are going to sell best. So maybe that's what you launch with some ideas to something like Blade or that afterwards. Because it would seem like that would fit well in that universe. A new take on Man-Thing, a new take on Blade. I don't know. They do seem to be a little bit chasing what's popular as compared to just saying, we got a great pitch, we're going to commit to it. Yeah, Hellstorm. What's her name? Satana? Ghost Rider? There's a lot of horror-themed superheroes in the Marvel universe. Because in the 70s, the supernatural and the occult was kind of cool. So, yeah. Not launching with Midnight Suns, but it does feel like that would make a lot of sense. At the same time, I'm willing to give them a little room to breathe if they want to set it up with something like Fantastic Four or X-Men to build that world out, I'm okay with that. Those are important elements in Marvel Comics. They're more well known. Maybe that can help with the world building. And then hopefully, if it's good, we do get some of those titles. I hope it is good. Even though I think they, in retrospect, have given up on Ultimate too quickly, Midnight is not a bad idea on paper. Not on paper. So let's talk about what I put in the thumbnail. Last Friday, Marvel announced that they were actually going to not print this John Romita Jr. cover for Amazing Spider-Man number 1000 after it received a lot of criticism online. And I'll say, I remember when I first saw it, I think on this news show, I did joke a little lightly. I said it looked a little like he was squatting to take a poop. It still does a little bit to me. So I feel a little bad about that because I just gave my quick thoughts, but there was a whole movement. And I think the movement was way overblown and radically unfair, to be honest, to an artist who has added a lot to both Marvel and Spider-Man. And I've made an episode about how much I personally like John Romita Jr., but let me talk about it a little. Then there was a wave of support from pros and fans in response, and Marvel reversed their decision and announced on Sunday that they would still publish it, and now it's back to being the main cover. There's the pencils, by the way. And you can definitely see how this painted version was interpreted from that. But I'll just say, looking at the pencils, it's open to a lot of interpretation, actually. I think that there's a lot of energy and dynamism to this when I see the original pencils. I see a lot more of like Spider-Man making a leap forward than I get from this, where he's sort of hovering. Like this looks like it's subtle, but I think that there's a lot of I think that there is a bit of a difference there. Anyway, Romita's pencils in general, I've spoken about this before. They are open to interpretation. He's got rock solid foundation, but he leaves a lot of, decisions on exactly how much to black out, what kind of feathering techniques to use. He doesn't indicate that stuff with his pencils generally. He leaves a lot of that up to his inkers. So I think personally that this pencil art has a lot more energy than the digital painted version, which I can see some things in it that I like, but I do prefer this version. And I would be very interested to see other takes on it. I was upset that he was getting slammed, and I don't think that that's fair. I really don't, because John Romita Jr. has been drawing for Marvel for like 50 years, right? That's a long time. He has contributed a lot of great stories to Spider-Man and X-Men, Punisher, all sorts of characters. And I don't think he deserved the brief disrespect of Marvel, his publisher, saying that they were going to pull the cover. That's another example of what I was talking about earlier. I want to see Marvel give people sometimes what they need, not what they think they want. I think I want to see Marvel a lot more committed to their ideas. A lot more. So you don't. Some of you still don't care for it. Like you don't care for it, Kevin. I really don't like. I don't mind it. When I see the penciled version, I kind of like it. I really do. This is a guy who created Prowler at age 13. Marvel took the idea, but Prowler, that he's been used now. He's an important element to Miles Morales, and he's been in the Spider-Verse movies. That's John Romita Jr. created that as a kid. The JRJR version on the blacks on the suit blend with what is supposed to be a black sky. Much more better. there's a lot of ways you could have done the background and the shading on this. There's a lot of different ways you could have gone. Anyway, it's just an indication to me that Marvel's leadership has no clear direction right now. There's no clear ideas being set, like this is our way forward. DC has been very clear about this is absolute, and then this is our all-in / next level initiatives. And they're going to go with a very creator-forward mentality with we're doing, the Demon or Legion of Superheroes because they really like the pitch, and they're going to let them do it. No, he created the original Prowler. It's just, like the Prowler's evolved and everything with lots of different writers and artists. I'm just saying it all came from him. You don't think it's number 1,000 cover material? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that once Marvel announced it, they needed to stay behind it and back their guy. And if they didn't like it, maybe you guys are right. You pitch an idea to an editor like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of. This is my thumbnail for the cover. And the editor says yes or no. Ultimately, my overall argument isn't necessarily the cover itself even. It's how Marvel responded within like a day to all this negative talk online, and then it went the other way and Marvel flip-flopped back. There's no direction there. It's listening too much to what ultimately has got to be a small percentage of the reading public. Like, it sounds loud because, on social media, we all have basically an equal volume, but it's not real. I see Disney did that with the third Star Wars movie. Like, too many people said that they didn't like Last Jedi, and then they ended up with this like piece of crap to conclude that trilogy. They just reversed course way too much. See, I think that they listen way too much, but I get your argument. I think they listen way too much. I look at this once I saw the pencils and I got excited again. And I go, you know what? Like, look at this pose overall. First of all, there's some energy. Second, what does the spider logo look like? He's basically finding a way to interpret Spider-Man's logo as a pose. And at least I haven't seen that before. There's all sorts of crazy poses and stuff, but I feel like he did have an original idea with it. Like, have Spider-Man pose like his logo. It's cool. It's not perfect, maybe. Maybe it could have used another draft, but I do think that there's an energy to the pencil art. I would like to see Klaus Janson ink it. Yeah, that would be very interesting. The only problem with the finished cover is the set dress. There's way too much. I will say that. Let me jump back. And that's a lot to put on a cover. That is a lot. Although I guess this is the ad for it. This is the ad. But that's still a lot of extra elements competing for your eye's attention. There should be a little more negative space, or at least a little more balance in this being centered. And they're proud of this 1,000, and I get it, but it really sucks the attention away because you see two faces here. Yeah. Anyway. Scott Hanna did a great job with nice, fine, intricate detail. I'd say Klaus Janson followed more the energy and the idea of a pose and a composition. There is an awful lot of symmetry that you don't typically see in a lot of covers. That's a good observation. See, I just think that's rude. I think that we need to show a little more respect and grace to people that have worked this long for creating stuff. Anyway, I've given my thoughts. I feel like it's too bad that Marvel sort of disrespected Romita by pulling the cover and then was flip-flopping. Okay, now I'm going to get into non-Marvel and DC stuff, and I'm going to get a little more excited. But I'm going to start with something very cool. I've always talked about how much I love how much you can access comics at the library, that a lot more people need to take advantage of that. And this is such a cool step towards that. So Hoopla Digital is arguably the biggest digital public library platform. If you've got a card to your local library, you can log into Hoopla and download all sorts of digital comics. Well, one thing they didn't have was access to lots of indie stuff. You know, they had all sorts of publishers from Image to DC, but they didn't really have a lot of indie. This week, they announced a partnership with the new distribution service, Aggregate Inc. Eric Gladstone is a guy who's written some comics. He worked at Stan Lee's POW Entertainment for a few years. He founded Aggregate to allow independent publishers and creators to band together to get distribution through Hoopla. It's not just one title now, it's dozens of titles. Gladstone points out that if even a small percentage of indie comics can get picked up at libraries instead of getting pirated, all of a sudden it means that the endeavor becomes profitable for the creators. So that's positive too. Anyway, Aggregate Inc. currently represents 100 titles, and it's brand new, 100 titles hosted by Hoopla, and they hope to expand to other services like Comics Plus and Libby with non-exclusive deals. Indie creators, if you're out there and you've got an indie book, you can request an invite for distribution through the Aggregate Inc. website. That's a cool idea to me. Like, not saying like, hey, we've got the rights to your stuff, we're not doing physical publishing or anything. We're just all banding together so that libraries can order these books through one digital distributor and put it on things like Hoopla and that. I love it. I love it. I hadn't heard about that. Really, a lot of New York State libraries are getting rid of Hoopla due to budget cuts. That's too bad. I feel like it's a place I'd love for some of my tax dollars to go to. Sometimes I do, actually. Why do you say that I don't? My wife has a card, and sometimes I use hers, basically. That's weird. I recommend Aggregate Inc. to indie creators. It was easy to use, and I got some cash from people reading my stuff. Winston, I'm so happy for you. That's really nice to hear. And it's kind of cool to just think that like now it's even easier for people to get access to some of your stuff. Hoopla is fantastic. I don't know, Kev. I don't know. Aggregate Inc. would be the people to ask about that. That's a good question. I don't use it regularly, but I've definitely used it. Just a couple months ago, I read a Catwoman run on Hoopla. So I don't know what I don't remember my exact statement anymore. But I also, like, I may have said it because I go to the comic book store. I buy my comics. But every once in a while I use it. I mostly use my wife's account because she uses the library pretty regularly. And so it's just easier. Spawn 77. So Todd McFarlane actually created Spawn as a kid in 1977 when he was 16 years old. That was where the idea came from, just like Eric Larson had created Savage Dragon when he was basically a teenager. Anyway, now he's bringing that original version to comics for the first time in a 3-issue miniseries, Spawn 77, co-written by McFarlane and Mark Spears, with fully painted interior by Spears. I think that'll do pretty well. Comes out September. 64-page first issue for $6.99. Whatever you think about Todd McFarlane, you got to admit he's always worked to keep his comics very affordable. That's pretty cool. The comic will have an array of covers with a main cover by Spears, a variant by Spears and McFarlane, a 1977 update by McFarlane, and more. Could be interesting. I don't know what the big differences are with his 77 version and his modern version. That's fair. Then I'll do it. You're right. That thanks for pushing me, sister. You're a good person. I'll go get my card. I did not like that, but I think Todd is a storyteller, but that for him, creating the stories like with his art was just at the time a means to an end, and he sees AI as like, you know, a tool. And I don't agree with that, but I also understand how he sees that. I don't think he understands how it's trained. Otherwise, I'd like to think he could have his opinion changed. If you're like, this is trained on other artists' artwork, that's why it's not. That's part of why it's not good. Anyway, hey Brunson, nice to see you. What else? Dinner date. I always promote this. Kerry Randolph is a guy I've known for over 25 years. He's a fantastic artist. He and his partner Joanne Starer are making a new comic, Dinner Date. It's an upcoming vampire rom com comic by the team that made Sirens of the City. Wow, that was a fantastic book. So yeah, Joanne Starer, Kerry Randolph, and his longtime colorist, great guy Emilio Lopez. It's a good team. Published by Ignition Press, and it comes out October 7th. Be sure to get your pre-orders before August 31st. Here's the premise as explained by Joanne. In every vampire story, there is a point where the newly formed vamp has a crisis of conscience and tries to survive without killing innocent people. After nearly a decade online dating apps, where I received the stupidest, grossest, most vile messages from strangers, I realized I had found the perfect hunting ground for vampires. And so Dinner Date was born. It's a horrific little rom-com that explores modern dating and female rage, and it's sure to be relatable to anyone who has ever been on the quest for love or revenge. They're funny, great artist. That should be good. Yeah, I agree, Mike. This Sirens of the City was absolutely fantastic. So if we're doing supernatural in the city again, but more modern, totally cool with that. Totally cool. A lot of people do know her as like somebody that wrote the Harley Quinn fart comic. She's awesome though. She's got such an interesting history beyond writing a bunch of comics that I personally really enjoy. She also ran a small female wrestling promotion back in the day. So she's got a lot of cool history. I think it's a cool one. I saw the pages from it, and it's funny. It's legit funny. It's also entertaining that we're getting to a point where we're seeing more and more stories where the vampires aren't necessarily the complete bad guys. They're the protagonists. I'm seeing that happen more often. Zoe Thorogood is doing a story about a vampire who goes to a 24-hour grocery store. I think gets sort of drunk on too much blood, and I'm pretty sure then the sun comes up, so they have to stay in the supermarket. I might not have that premise perfect yet, but it hasn't come out, so that's why I'm not sure. Yo, look at this. Third Eye Comics. Anybody on the East Coast, or at least the mid coast area, knows about this. It's a chain of comic stores in Maryland. Really good. It's where they filmed The Stacks. If you watch, what is it, the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast, they do that interview show called The Stacks, in the Stacks, where creators pick out their favorite comics. My friend Jim Mafood was on it. A lot of creators I've interviewed or know have been on it. It's a really good premise. Anyway, it's a great comic store. I miss it. When I lived in the DC area, I would go to Third Eye, and it was a little further away, but it was always worth it. Great store, great stores. Anyway, they're launching a new one in Glen Burnie, Maryland. It's going to take over an old Walmart. So it's got more than 10,000 square feet. I'm pretty sure that makes it the second biggest comic store in America. The first is always going to be Mile High Comics in Denver, which has at least 45,000 square feet. It's basically this absolutely massive warehouse. But yeah, that's still like a really big store. They'll be opening their doors on July 25th, just a week before Spider-Man Brand New Day. Got 20% off almost everything except for things like new releases, a few items that they'll call out for their grand opening. What was the East Coast comic shop that used to have a YouTube channel? Geez, I'm really not sure. I don't know. That's an interesting question. This is the 9th location for Third Eye Comics. It's going to feature the debut of a new category of merchandise. They're calling it Third Eye Thrift, which is vintage finds and limited time great buys. So, good idea. When I was growing up, NEC was becoming the biggest one, and they did get up to 9 locations at one time. As of this year, I think that they're down to 1. I don't know. That's true. Comic Book Men had a literal TV show, so that's in Jersey. So yeah, maybe. Maybe if I was on the East Coast, I could swing by. But yeah. I don't know that comic book stores had them, but I know that my local Walmart would have Mexican jumping beans. And I didn't know any better as a kid. I didn't think at all about what it was. It's a tiny little worm that's trying to break out of its shell. It's a little depressing. A few random bits here. So, Deadline, first of all, reported that The Boys co-creator Derek Robertson has been tapped to write and produce the Crestar and the Night Stallion live-action television series. That follows a Detroit vigilante called Crestar, and he trains a sidekick, the Night Stallion, who might be the first actual superhuman. The folk horror comic book series Black Diamond is being adapted into a feature film by director Ernest Dickerson and Fangoria Studios, Fangoria, the horror magazine. And Ernest Dickerson has done some interesting stuff, done a lot of Walking Dead, directed a lot of that. Back in the day, did one of the Tales from the Crypt movies. Not Tales from the Crypt. Was it Tales from the Crypt? Yeah, Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood, maybe? Black Diamond follows Owen and Victoria Welch on a family ski trip that spirals into a nightmare. When their son is abducted by a mysterious cult, the couple is pushed to the brink and faced with a soul-crushing ultimatum: sacrifice another child or lose their own forever. And finally, Misfits frontman Glenn Danzig, longtime comic book fan, no question. He's going to direct a live-action version of his comic Hell Mask about a supernatural warrior in medieval Europe. Had some covers by Simon Beasley, published through his own imprint, Verotic. So some pretty weird books all getting adaptations. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I want them to be successful for people to get into comics, but those are definitely some interesting ideas. I feel like the one that has the most potential would be Black Diamond. I feel like that has the most potential, but who knows? The best thing Danzig has done recently was get one-shot knocked out by a drummer from an indie punk band that he picked a fight with. Fodder for Red Letter Media. That was my impression of Rich Evans laughing. All right. Dark Horse. All right. So last week, Dark Horse Comics voluntarily recognized its employee union. This week, a little bit of chaos to do with that. The union issued a cease and desist letter to Dark Horse after management announced a plan to lay off 9 of its employees. 3 of those are from IT, 6 are from their warehouse. Dark Horse issued a response saying they're committed to working with the union, but as part of their long-term plans to remain profitable, they need to streamline operations. Might be true, might not. I don't know. The publisher says that they were already planning on these layoffs, but of course, now that there's a union, that has to go through an arbitration process. That's the point of a union. Ultimately, a company can definitely still let people go, no matter what a union says, but the union could have its remaining employees, do things like a walkout or something. So anyway, it just got a little messy. If Dark Horse is sincerely having these financial issues, I understand that they might have to let some people go, but are they overdoing it? Could they take this from other areas like management, who's probably getting paid top dollar? We'll see. These sounded a little interesting to me. I like horror. Writer Stephanie Williams and artist Pablo Collar will make a 5-issue series in September based on the Smile horror movies. I like those movies. They weren't perfect, but they were pretty good. I kind of like the second one more, I think. Anyway, it's set in the world of pro football and props, to the idea of putting it in something like that. If you've seen Smile, it is about sort of infecting people and spreading this like infection to other people. So like they started with, for instance, like the first movie is about a therapist and, like that they work with people. But the second movie really upped the stakes by having it be a pop singer. And think of all the people she could reach. Same with a football player. Not a bad idea. Anyway, set in January 1995 during the American Arena League Football Championship game in St. Augustine, Florida, the rising superstar of the Sharks, backup quarterback Dupree, is feeling the pressure from his teammates, the fans, and also the city's gambling underworld, to whom he owes a considerable debt. Meanwhile, a sports journalist investigates a string of suicides that may be connected to the big game. At the very least, they are connected to a sinister entity that preys on the minds of its victims. And then in November, IDW is doing something with Declan Shalvey and Luke Sparrow. They did Terminator together. They're going to do a 5-part A Quiet Place, Rising Tides, which, quote, brings the creatures to the Florida Keys, where a father-daughter duo attempt to survive on water in a houseboat. If you haven't seen those movies, A Quiet Place, it's about these aliens. I think that they're aliens. They don't have eyes, but they have super good hearing, and they'll just like attack and eat whatever they hear. But the one thing they can't do is swim. So this would be like, an example of people trying to go somewhere safe, and apparently it's not safe. I thought she did a great job too. Has she been in anything else? I forget the actress's name, but I found her really interesting. A really broken person, but I was kind of rooting for her, and it was frustrating. Are you ready for some football? You gotta have a big smile. Look out now. There's a monstrous entity in your mind. Oh, yeah. There. IDW, you can license that, and that's your promo for any given smile. Oh, yeah, are you ready for some football and a creature in your mind? It's going to give you lots of hallucinations, and everybody's going to seem to smile. Oh, that actress. Wasn't she also Jasmine in the live-action Aladdin movie? She might have been in a few things then. I don't know if I've seen that. Interesting idea. A Quiet Place comic from an alien's POV. The only trick there is like if it makes the monster too well known and understandable. We have to have a lot of like questions about like what a villain or a monster in a scary movie is. She was the Pink Ranger. Okay, that was the I don't know. I've not even heard of that. Sorry. All right, last one. Kind of fun. Space Ghost versus the Herculoids. Dynamite announced a crossover. I think it makes a lot of sense. Both of these were Hanna-Barbera cartoons in the 60s. Both had Alex Toth designs. both had a strong father figure. I mean, literally, Xandor in the Herculoids had like, a wife and a kid and then these weird pets. But Space Ghost has like the twins. They're both father figures of sorts. The regular Space Ghost team of David Pepose and Jonathan Lau will make the miniseries, and then that's going to lead into their next volume of Space Ghost. So they've been working on one of these characters for quite a while, had a lot of success. The story features Space Ghost stopping the hijacking of a Federation cruiser, but also has the Federation mining from the planet of Xandor and the Herculoids, and it will ultimately lead to some sort of big confrontation. Could be fun. I've been an active reader of both of these books since they've been releasing, and I really enjoyed both of them. I'm 100% looking forward to the crossover. Smile invades the U.S. Open. Smile invades curling. Space Ghost is a little bit of a blind spot for me. I know a little about Space Ghost, but not a lot. I liked Herculoids a lot. I just didn't see a lot of Space Ghost for some reason, but I liked Herculoids. Igu, 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 igu. and Gloop and Gleep. All right. That, folks, is the news of the week. So let's pivot to doing some reviews. We've got a lot of comic books that came out this week, and there's a lot to talk about regarding all these publishers and creators with reviews. So this should be fun. Let me set this up, and we're going to jump into... Oh, I never played the news intro, but that's okay. Whatever. I'm going to play the review segment intro so that I can get set up.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Not fast enough this time, I guess. Okay, hold on. There we go. Usually that's enough time, but I needed a little more. There was some interesting stuff that came out this week, but also some things I am actively looking to reduce how many comics I buy. There are a lot of comics that I like, but I feel like I need to cut back and only get what I really love, or stuff that's sort of in the middle. I really need to sort of cut it. And if I later hear that it turns into a good arc, I'll get it as, trade paperback. But I'm going to start with one that I definitely did like, and that is Absolute Batman number 21. By the way, tricky to decide which cover I wanted because there were basically two main covers, both by Nick Dragotta, one with the new version of Two-Face, one with the new version of Penguin, and I really liked both of them design-wise. I think it's really strong. But there's a lot of stuff going on in this. Look at that nice two-page spread, though. I do admire how over-the-top huge this Batman is, and I love the gadgets and stuff that he has. In this one, we see him wrapping his cape up and all those little sort of hooks that he can use to grab people or walk on. Yeah, it just sort of becomes almost like a grappling hook or a mace around his fist. That's it. That's entertaining. He's fighting a bunch of mechs in this. Mechs that are piloted by the Robins, who in this are not his sidekicks, but are led by Deathstroke. And we know that they're basically being lied to, but it's a good series of action beats is all I can say. I don't want to just literally explain it all to you, but there's some good stuff here too. Subplot stuff with Bruce's relationship with the late Commissioner Gordon, as well as his daughter giving a funeral speech. She's definitely being set up to go in some interesting directions. Barbara Gordon is in this book. We already have an idea of where it's going. Is this Batman on Titan? No, it's just that there's a really, really wealthy enemy. This version of Joker is a billionaire. Bruce Wayne is working class. This is their first meeting. Jack Grimm. Yeah, really interesting dynamic introduction, giving him a full page splash there. Slightly low angle to give him some power. Just up there against the sky. He does a great thing here because he can turn into this absolutely crazy like monster. He's done weird stuff with his genetics. I love how he just releases it for just a second to surprise Bruce. There's a bunch more pages here, but it was good. It's got this one is a bunch of subplots. Okay, so this is about building to something. We're not getting tons of huge reveals per se, but to counter how many subplots they've got going, they give us an opening action sequence. You know, Batman has a pretty long, extended battle with these gigantic mechs, and that's fun. You know, that really gets your heart pumping, gets you excited to get into this book. I'm loving it because you know what? Every issue gives me a couple nice surprises. Sometimes something completely original, sometimes a twist on something that should be recognizable but is very, very different. So I don't know. They're threading a needle that I don't know I could always thread. I think I'd be too tempted to be, what word am I thinking of? I'd want to honor the original ideas sometimes too much. And I appreciate that this goes in such different directions. It gives character arcs that we can suspect, and then it will surprise us by either paying that suspicion off in some sort of explosive, reveal, or subvert our expectations by doing something completely different. So it really is able to play with the history of Batman. If you haven't read Batman, you're getting a completely new story. If you have read Batman, then you go, okay, I know this about Scarecrow. I know this about Robin. And you expect certain things. But they're setting these characters up as such different people that you go, okay, are they going to become that version of the character that I know? And am I seeing like their character journey? Or does it go a completely different way and surprise me that way? And it keeps doing that effectively. Very, very clever. Yeah, maybe that's the word I'm thinking of. Like, I might be too precious if I was writing a book like this. I don't know. We do see his face sometimes. What he does in this is, he's very much covered his face with long hair. But depending on how he feels, he sort of like will pull to like one side or the other to sort of like, he'll just put that hair over his head, but he still like has it draped across one side of his face. I think it's a pretty cool idea. It works for me. Strong recommend. New issue of Green Arrow 2. Oh, I'd love to like go into this because it's a murder mystery. But if I go too far into it, I'm going to spoil some of the direction it's going, and I don't want to do that. Let's just say that the viewpoint character in this, the protagonist, is definitely Dinah Lance, Black Canary. But she's not a superhero in this, or at least not yet. She's like a security guard for wealthy people, and she's been hired to investigate all these billionaires that are getting killed by the Green Arrow. It takes her into some really dark places. A lot of this one, we're getting a version of the late Oliver Queen's history as told from the perspective of somebody named Mia Dearden, who he sort of mentored. In the comics, she's one of his sidekicks in the mainstream comics. Great artwork by Raphael Albuquerque. I mean, look at how expressive these characters are, but also consistent, also consistent. It is definitely dark. There's some people that get like really messed up. I found this page pretty interesting, like all these tiny little panels of a fight scene in a ring where there's also an interview going on. and then the middle panel is from the point of view of somebody watching it. Interesting idea. Interesting layout. It really makes it feel like this is all sort of going on around him. Feels very energetic. Really good storytelling. Really cool poses here and there, you know? Felt like a good real fight. I liked it. I didn't expect originally this to be a mystery book, but it definitely is. And also a horror book. You know, we've got Green Arrow is a serial killer, basically. Yeah, Absolute is definitely a parallel universe, just to be clear. It's its own continuity. And it can do pretty much whatever it wants. It doesn't seem like they've really put any firm rules on the creators. They've been fairly slow with releasing new titles into the universe, and a good job sort of letting each book breathe on its own. Because we're like 2 years in, and while we've had some small crossover with Batman and Wonder Woman, that's about it for the most part. That's about it. Yeah, still very easy for new readers to get into this stuff, thanks also to the reprints and trade paperbacks. I like the idea of taking the idea of a Green Arrow is a guy who, is kind of Robin Hood, right? Steal from the rich, give to the poor. His original version in the Golden Age, he almost was Robin Hood. And then in the 70s, they were like, oh, let's make Oliver Queen like way more of an equal rights crusader and like, a man of the people. And now this takes that and subverts that a little by saying, well, what if he just, was a modern day, I was about to say Luigi Mangione, but we don't know for a fact that he killed anyone. So but the story, like a guy that's going after, these billionaires that are hoarding wealth and specifically a lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry. They basically blackmail Dinah Lance to working for them because they cancel her ill father's health insurance. And they're like, so he'll either die because we just blocked him from getting health insurance, or you can work for us and you'll get paid and you can keep helping him out. And you're like, yeah, it's like a heightened version of real life. And yet we have so many stories where healthcare companies deny claims and, people die because they can't get care. And then the CEO gets a raise for raising profits. It's disgusting. Billionaires are definitely not our heroes. Whereas that was so aspirational in the golden age of comics, because the people that were, the wealthiest back then, they weren't good people, but they were still creating things a lot of the time, like they'd create like newspapers and trains. They were creating infrastructure for America at a time when they needed it. So, yeah, it's an interesting look at how times have changed. Like the Batman of the Golden Age, his superpower was that he was really rich. But now in like the, Absolute universe, he's just a guy with his smarts and his physical skills. He's just absolutely not a millionaire or anything like that. He's a working class guy, and the bad guy is the billionaire. The bad guy is the billionaire. I was like, yeah, it works for me. Works for me. I like the art. I like the story. Also, the mystery element of it. Pornsock Pichot is really good at that. I talked up his mystery crime book, The Good Asian, a lot when that came out. I was like, this guy's like setting up all these clues, interesting characters, not confusing us with too much information or giving us too little. We can't get ahead of the story, but we're not left behind. Really, really impressive. Battle Beast came out, and this book continues to have its sales climb each month, which is impressive. But it really gives us what I think people remember about the Invincible comics, because the Invincible comics had a lot of subplots and a lot of world building, but I think we tend to remember the big epic confrontations and stuff, And this is kind of giving us a digestible version of that. And while Battle Beast is already established and already has his abilities and stuff, he's also going through a character arc of trying to be empathetic while being consumed by rage. And to no fault of his own, that's his body chemistry. Let me pause real quick and say, on this 2-page spread, I really admire how Ryan Ottley drew the two characters' eyes. But especially Battle Beast's, because these both look like piercing eyes staring in anger, but also very cat-like. Like this is how he draws a human eye, and then this is a cat eye, and that's a subtle difference. But I think a lot of artists wouldn't be able to necessarily communicate that as well. There's also a lot of really funny stuff visually, like these are all aliens, right? And what are they eating? It's just the grossest stuff if you pause and look. This is like something out of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. We've got like eyeballs over here. We've got a skull with 2 eyeballs on skewers. If you actually look at it, it's a pretty horrific meal. Anyway, Conquest is the bad guy, but we don't all know that he's a bad guy in this story, or at least the other characters don't. It all leads to them. They're feeling each other out, Battle Beast and Conquest. We know that it's going to lead to a fight, but it takes its time, which is very satisfying. And look at how Ryan Ottley will draw this shot like that. I think a lot of people would skip, but Conquest is a guy that's balding, right? And he's got this distinctive scar across his head. I just kind of loved how Ryan positioned this from the back of his head to show what the hair and the scar look like from that angle. I just feel like a lot of artists would sort of skip that step or just cover it with hair here. It's detail that really helps it feel like a real character. You think it's Absolute Green Arrow is disappointing because it's too on the nose. Billionaire's bad. Yeah, but it's explaining why these billionaires are bad. Like I said, I find it very relatable. Dude, once Ryan gets to draw like an action scene, you can tell he's just having so much fun. There's joy in this art. There's joy. Robert knows how to write to Ryan's strengths, and Ryan has just become a better and better artist over the years. And he was very good to start with. But yeah, I really like it. It's fun. It's just a fun adventure book with some good comedy. As far as like the books that I'm reading right now, I'll just say that these are 2 of the books that are my favorite every month. They're first to read in the pile. I can't resist. The last one I'll spend a little bit more time talking about before I do some quicker reviews is the return of Paul Chadwick's Concrete, creator-owned book that he's been doing at Dark Horse almost since the beginning. Concrete is interesting. It's a story of a guy who goes through a transformation and becomes this big stone monster, right? Maybe like Ben Grimm or something. But instead of being a superhero, it focuses on how he tries to live a normal life. And he's just so big and heavy. It's like, how does he travel? Well, he has to travel in the back of a pickup truck bed. What does he want to do? He wants to do speeches and do writing like he used to do as a person. He doesn't want fight supervillains. That's not what it's about. And it's about nature. In this, he and 2 of his friends are going on a trip before he gives a speech somewhere, and they stop at the Real Desert. Which one is it? Sorry, the Great Sand Dunes. Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, I think. Is that right? Yeah, Great Sand Dunes National Park, Colorado. By the way, isn't this interesting that first page, it isn't like credits or an ad, it just starts? Very realistic, grounded art. Nice. Not too scratchy, not too simple, but still very grounded. very in touch with nature and just human interaction. I really admired seeing a return to this. I don't really remember the last concrete arc very well, but it doesn't matter. We get up to speed. We pick up where it was left off, but it doesn't really matter. It gives you everything you need to know. It's an idea of somebody going through, the Fantastic Four type experience, but being in the real world. Not becoming a superhero in the real world, just going through that transformation and trying to retain who you are and to just accept who you are. The guy's sad. He doesn't love his new body or anything. Does it? No, I didn't notice that, first of all. Let me get to the end. Editors. I don't see him listed in this one. I don't see him listed in this one as a president. I'm reading through the indicia and I don't see anything. But I believe you that he has been. Hey, nice to see you, Bronze Age Nerd. My buddy Christopher here, Bronze Age Nerd, has a great channel, and he got to host a panel this past weekend. Yesterday, in fact, at Washington SummerCon. He got to host a panel with Roy Thomas and Mike Friedrich. So congrats on getting invited to do that. Those are definitely some, important people in the comic book world. However you see them, like there's some pretty important people, and that what a nice opportunity for you. Happy for you. So I was talking earlier about being like ruthless with what I'm going to stick with, and I liked issue 2 of If Destruction Be Our Lot quite a bit. And at the same time, I think that, and as well as Odin, these are both issues 2s that I liked the first issue of both of these quite a bit. I think I'm going to try to be ruthless with my own budget, and I might not be continuing with these next month. And it's not because they're bad in any way. In fact, they're quite good. But I'm trying to be as discerning as possible and say, like, where do I truly get my enjoyment from? I can acknowledge that something is very well made, but if it isn't sparking actual sort of emotions in me, maybe I have to be a little tougher. And so I love the world building in this, with all sorts of weird different robots existing in a world where they have no purpose, but they just continue on anyway. This guy is an Abraham Lincoln robot. He knows that he's not Abraham Lincoln, but that's also all he knows is Abraham Lincoln's history. And he thinks like Abraham Lincoln. Well, he also thinks that he saw a human being, which every other robot says, no, they don't exist anymore. We outlasted them. But kind of like the original Lincoln, he's like, no, I think that they're out there, and I think that we need to learn to work together. Anyway, it's got some great, fun, sort of scary stuff with like these robots that are tasked with dismantling and reprogramming other robots. It puts them in some really tough situations. I like the art and the world building, but it also just didn't like necessarily spark the excitement that I got out of something like Battle Beast or the Absolute books. So I'm gonna like probably let it go. Also, I'm probably gonna let Odin go. Again, I don't have necessarily bad things to say about it. It's just that this is a story where a reporter has embedded herself with a group of Nazis. She wants to write an expose on them. Modern day, like, white power weirdos. And they've gone out into the woods in Norway, I want to say. Maybe it's Sweden. In the hopes of, like communing with Odin and the Norse gods. It's interesting and it's scary. But these are despicable people. And so I don't really care that they're in a tough situation in the woods and that they're like starting to turn on each other. If there's a twist to this, like where they start interacting with gods, or even if they start getting picked off like in a horror thing, I don't care. They're horrible people. They're horrible. So I find it hard to even want to empathize with them in this situation. So I think I'm going to let it go. Something is Killing the Children is wrapping up, hopefully, its last big flashback arc of the days when Erica Slaughter was getting trained by her mentor, Jessica, who has become, is an alcoholic. But we finally kind of understand why she's an alcoholic in this, which I found all utterly interesting. Most of this is actually just conversations. She's like, look, our job is not to hunt and kill monsters and protect the kids that imagine them into being. It's to keep this a secret from the world. And she goes, and sometimes our organization is terrible and has made us kill the kids that imagine these things so that they don't come back. And she goes, that's why I drink, because sometimes I let them go. And if I can't remember the details because I'm just like totally like, I've had too much to drink, I can't actually lie to our superiors. And I can sort of like do the right thing, but and claim ignorance. And I was like, that is so dark, but I kind of get how she got to that point. And I found it interesting. Something was killing the Yinglings. Anyway, I don't love that we've dealt with so many flashbacks in this story. I really prefer to stick with Erica in the modern day and see her, face down not just monsters, but her own corrupt organization. At the same time, I do like this enough that I'm definitely sticking with it. I just am eager to get back to the modern day. But it's also kind of cool. You're like, oh, now I see what makes Erica a little different. Like it was a progression. Jessica was trying to be more moral than like what the rigid standards of this organization allow. And she kind of gave that to Erica, and Erica was able to go even further and break away from this organization and just be like, I'm not going to kill a kid. Something is killing your liver. That should have been the name of this flashback. Something. I told you guys would have the best jokes. Redcoat is just a blast, folks. Second to last one I'll talk about, right? Yeah, I think so. Redcoat is telling us a story where Simon Pure is an immortal, and it's like 1918, I think, or 1909. And young Albert Einstein, his friend, has come over to warn him about like this danger with this secret society. We've got Benedict Arnold, who's an actual sort of supernatural villain in this, except everything is telling us that Benedict may have changed his ways, and Simon doesn't know who to believe. It feels like maybe Benedict, as a fellow immortal from his same time period, may have changed his ways, but we've seen him do such horrible things that that's really hard to believe. He also finally confesses to his family in this, well, to his wife anyway, his nature, that he's an immortal. And it's kind of heartbreaking because she can't accept it. They've got like a really perfect family and everything, but she can't accept it and she leaves. I hope that Simon can get his family back because he's a fuck up. Okay. There's no other way to say it. He's a fuck up, but after about over 100 years of being a total goofball, finding this woman and having kids has made him finally a pretty good person. It's exciting. It's got good dialogue. It's got great art. It's got good action. I love it. Dude, I love Redcoat. I think it's so good. Nice. Yeah, this is going to survive my purge. I think I'm going to at least let Odin and if Destruction Be Our Lot go, but I'm going to keep up with Redcoat. I went ahead and got the 616 blind bag, just one copy, just because I was like, it'll be content for this. So what it is they said that in each of these bags, there's going to be a new copy of Doom Quest and a reprint of a famous Doctor Doom comic. One of these. as well as a mask. Oh boy, it's like getting a prize inside a Cracker Jack box these days. But since I got it, I was like, oh, well, it's written by Ryan North. Well, I love his Fantastic Four and Flash stuff, so I'll give it a shot. It's good. It follows a story where Doctor Doom is trying to figure out a way to finally make his country of Latveria more prosperous, more successful, you know? His people are loyal to him, but he wants to be, you know, like the world power, not just him himself, but his country. And he gets this idea, and it makes him so mad. But Reed Richards says, I think one day humanity will get past all its wars and its conflicts. We're wasting our time. Someday we'll get past that. And he goes, I think that our final act will then be to go back in time and fix all our mistakes at once. Like we'll find, he goes, that's what I think someday will be in the future. And Dr. Doom is like, hey, that's a good idea. So he builds like a special time machine where he'll be able to go back in time mentally and make things go his way. All the superheroes go up against him. And then I'll stop there because some weird things happen. And essentially Dr. Doom, I think, gets mentally flung through time. So I think he'll end up like it seems to indicate that the second issue would take place in the early 1900s with things like the Titanic or, you know, Depression era New York. We'll see. It was way more interesting than I expected, so I don't regret buying it. Here's the mask, which I'll show you in a minute. And I got a reprint of a John Byrne issue of Fantastic Four, but I do remember reading this one back in the day. It's pretty good. It does unfortunately do the thing with the modern reprinting where it's printing on like paper from the original digital files, so the colors are way too bright. You know, like these purples and greens were meant to be on very muted newsprint and mute the colors, but instead they're very garish. Anyway, it is a good story of Dr. Doom raising an heir, Christoph. And he's got way more of an ego than he does even today. But it's good. It's really good. It's a good issue. Good cover, too. That's a really cool cover. And I love G.I. Joe, but you guys don't need to know that. All right, so let's see here. Here's the mask. Is that the right size? Just really top-notch materials. Everybody's going to be wearing it this Halloween. Bah! Bah! Who's going to actually wear this? And where? It's tiny. It's a waste of money to have included this. It's amusing, but nobody's actually going to wear this anywhere. It's too flimsy. It's too small. It's a funny idea, but like no one needs it. That did not need to be included. That did not need to be included. If you're going to get a Dr. Doom mask, you can get a professional Dr. Doom mask these days. Look at that thing. Richards! All right. Let's pivot to drawing. Let me bust out some pens and do some drawing and talk about some stuff. Yeah, it won't fit over my big ass head. MF Doom. Rest in peace. I'll see if I can get it graded. It was something like that. That was before my house flooded, and I spent money in silly ways. But now I've got it, so whatever. Let's see. What else went on this week for me? Let me think. While I work on figuring out which pens I want to use here. Trying to think of what I saw and did. I'm not against whimsy. It's a little amusing, But if it added even like anything to the cost, it wasn't necessary. That's all. MF stands for mini face. I love it. Useless things that came with comics. You know who did a lot of that was, I want to say DC Thompson, the British publisher. They used to include a lot of, like a mask or some sort of a paper freebie with their comics. I'm pretty sure it was DC Thompson. I got to think about it. Oh, cool. You got to see Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I laughed so hard at that. I love it. I absolutely loved it. Both the story as well as the improvised stuff where they mess with actual people. Like that just, I don't know, cracks me up. What did I see and do this week? Oh, that would be actually a kind of cool one in the animation cell. That would be a kind of a cool one. Oh, I know what to talk about. I went to a Comic-Con this weekend on Saturday. Kind of briefly. It's just a local one called Washington SummerCon. And I almost didn't go because last year I was really disappointed with it. Last year, they really moved away from a lot of the comic stuff and had just tons and tons of, voice actors and actors from the past. And it was just like, okay, so it's a pop culture con now. Fine, I get that that's for a lot of people. It's not for me. I come for the comics. But then this year they had a couple good names that they announced, like Absolute Writers Porn Sock P-Shirt Show, Absolute Green Lantern, Absolute Catwoman's Shay Grayson. Dan Panosian is an artist I really admire. Simon Beasley. So I didn't have any coffee tonight, so I didn't sing the song. Anyway, we went. Chrissy went with me, so that was very special to me to get to do something. Chrissy's, been very exhausted due to like various things, and it was very special for me to get to spend some time with my wife doing something social. I got to see a couple friends. I got to see several viewers that stopped me. That was all very fun. I didn't have enough time to actually stop and get any autographs or talk with any of the artists that I admire. We didn't get to spend that much time before we had to get going. So too bad, I guess, but that's okay. I had a good time looking at like all the sort of vintage merchandise. They had lots of comics that I was digging through. I ultimately didn't get myself anything. I got something for Chrissy. I got some stuff for the folks at work. So like some of my coworkers and stuff. They had great food there. I didn't get any of that, but I got some for my coworkers. So it was really fun. I got to just, I got to see a bunch of cosplay stuff. There was some really cool cosplay stuff. There's one lady, I didn't know what this cosplay was. She was in a white dress and she was walking around on what must have been stilts because she was like up like 10 feet in the air. It was amazing looking at it, but I don't know what that was. Long sort of red hair. I don't know what that would be. But I got to see Simon Beasley draw for a while. I did get to pause and watch him draw. That was kind of cool. Yeah, Simon Beasley was there. That was good. That was good. No, sorry. I wish I could. For what it's worth, if any convention was willing to, have me host a panel and give me tickets for it, I would strongly consider going. If they were also going to like fly me out there, I would absolutely go. But I've never been invited to host a panel anywhere. I don't know why. I would think that with the size of my channel that that would make for an appealing thing. And, I've obviously done interviews. I feel like I'm a pretty fair person that hasn't pissed off people. But anyway, I've never been invited to do anything like that. So, no, there's some conventions I've still never been to that I'd love to go to someday, including San Diego. I do plan to go to New York because I usually go to New York. I always go to New York. It's an excuse to see one of my best friends from college. He lives in New York, and we both like comics, so we always have a great day doing that. Big hat? There wasn't a big hat, no. Lady Demestru from Resident Evil. Maybe. I didn't think I played that one. I mean, I'm not going to reach out to individual cons and be like, give me a free ticket, I'll come. But I've got other friends that do YouTube stuff, and they get invited. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to ask for free stuff. It's not that important to me. I'm just saying, if a convention did, I'd be willing to go, But I don't know that that's enough of a draw. So I'm not shaming them either. They might be like, yeah, you've got an okay audience, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be a draw for us. And I go, okay, yeah, that's a fair consideration. But anyway, at least I got to do something a little extra comic book related this week, and that was definitely a treat. Getting to spend some extra time with Chrissy was a treat. So I'm very happy about that. That helped, because I've been, honestly, I will admit, I'm pretty depressed these days. I wish I wasn't, but I feel kind of miserable most of the time. Not a whole lot brings me joy. But that's okay. That's okay. That's my problem. I had a little bit of fun on Saturday, and I'm glad. I'm grateful for it. I'm very grateful for it. What else, though? I'll tell you comic tropes-wise. I put up a new episode. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I put up an episode where I do a deep dive looking very, very closely at the techniques used by David Mazzucchelli in Batman Year One specifically. I really honed in on that because there's a lot of stuff you could say or talk about with David Mazzucchelli. He's a guy that hasn't made that many comics, but neither has somebody like Jim Steranko, and yet very influential. And I think that I think that David Mazzucchelli is masterful, and just made some really perfect comics. And I was sort of doing a Bat Month theme. So I talked about his work in Year One, and I was very happy with how it came out. Hopefully you get a chance to see it. I wouldn't know. I'd have to see a picture. That's so nice of you, Mike. I was writing it, and because I came up with the angle of doing it almost like a lesson plan or something, I was talking in a very, I worried that I was talking in terms that were too poetic or something, but I was like, it's okay, because I haven't really done this exact thing, at least a whole lot. So I liked putting it together that way, and I was happy with how it came out. Little concerned about am I being too flowery with my language or something? Am I going to lose people here instead of just describing? And then Batman jumped off the building, and that looked really cool, but it just wasn't the way I was going to approach the episode. I had a great time doing it. I'm very happy with it, and so now the next thing I'm going to do for the show is I'm hard at work on doing what I consider my 10th anniversary episode. I'm going to do something about comparing a bunch of different shark comics from different countries. I know that sounds pretty obscure. It's not Spider-Man or Batman or something, but it's something I really want to do, and I'm excited. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I wanted to have enough time to do one on Jim Aparo, and I've just got to get my 10th episode done. But yeah, I've got to get my 10th anniversary episode done. You're very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I was very excited about it. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. You're some of my most engaged audience, of course, but I do appreciate the support a lot. I hope you know that. What else? And then after that, I might go into doing a few manga-themed episodes that I think should still appeal to everybody. Not just bringing you up to speed on stuff, but telling you really interesting stories behind the scenes about some creators. I've got some stuff I want to say about like 3 different creators, right? Wait, hold on. 1, 2, at least 3. 4th of July, beaches are open. That is my goal, is to get this episode up before the 4th of July. It might be as close as the 3rd that I get it up, but that is currently my goal. And I think I can do it. I really do. What else? Oh, I did something fun. No, I'm curious about it. I didn't love Toy Story 4, to be honest. I didn't think that one, I don't know. It just didn't do a whole lot for me. It wasn't bad in any way, but it didn't do a whole lot for me. But maybe I'll see 5 at some point. You know what? I'll see Supergirl, I think. I mean, that's comic book related. So I'll probably make a point of going out and seeing that. What else was I going to say, though? No, I didn't see any movies this week, actually. I didn't have time. I just was too busy. But I did do something similar. I went out and saw some live theater. A friend of mine invited me to go see a play in Tacoma by just local community theater. It was specifically a musical version of totally agree, Andy. I'm thinking of a Go Nagai episode. It was a musical theater version of Frankenhooker, the 1990 horror comedy movie Frankenhooker by Frank Henenlotter. He also made the movies Basket Case, or one that I reviewed with Jim Mafood on this channel, Brain Damage. I think that was our second episode ever or something. I really recommend it. I think we had a pretty good episode there. So yeah, local people, no budget, none of them are professional actors, and they just decided hey gang, let's put on a show. And they made a version of Frankenhooker. It was super entertaining, both because of the ambition of it and the effort put forth. Also, beyond it being campy subject matter, it was fairly amateurish. But I did it. And so I both expected it to be, knowing it was local theater, and I did not expect how amateurish it would sometimes be. The fact that the guy trying to put the spotlight on people never seemed to know the staging, so he was always trying to find it. The fact that pretty much none of them could sing well, and some of them couldn't even enunciate loud enough for me to understand what they were saying here and there. The main lead often had the script in his hand and was reading from it because he hadn't memorized the whole thing. And it was also over 3 hours long. So, they said, okay, Shakespeare, you think you're so great. Well, did you try to make 3 hours out of Frankenhooker? He's like, no, I didn't think to do that. So, yeah, pretty funny how ambitious that was. The movie itself is nowhere close to 3 hours, by the way. So that means while they start by, the first half adapting it, then they sort of go off on their own version. It was hilarious. Oh, yeah, of course I've seen basket case 1 and 2. And I think 3. Anyway. Yeah. There's a song about super crack. It was only something like $5 or $10 to go, so like it was totally worth it. We had a great time, to be honest. It was just neither of us expected to be up that late watching this presentation. It was just so long, but we had a good time. So that's something very unique that I got to do this week. And I'm very grateful that I got to do that. So I got to do that and go out to a comic convention for a couple hours with my wife. Like, it was a good week in that regard. It was a good week. Just been a lot of work. I thought that I had yesterday off from work, so I stayed up till 4 a.m. Saturday night finishing the latest comic Tropes. I'm like, yeah, I'll get it out to people, on that weekly basis that I'm aiming for. Whatever, I'm up till 4, I get to sleep in. And then I get a call in the morning, and I was scheduled to work. So I had to rush into work on about 6 hours of sleep. That was pretty rough. But whatever. I was able to do it, make ends meet. We all got to work, right? We all got to work. Most of us aren't trillionaires. Most of us. A few of you guys might be. But I am, not all of us. I didn't see any movies. I did watch one TV show. I've got a friend that gave me access. So grateful to my friend Matt, gave me access to his family plan on Apple TV. And so I watched this newer show. It's a horror comedy called Widow's Bay. And I didn't realize it, but it's set in like a fictional New England or Massachusetts island. It's great. It's I don't know. I'm going to keep up with it. It was funny. It was creepy. It has Matthew Rhys, who I really thought was fantastic on The Americans. Yeah, it's a good cast. I can't wait to watch more of it. That was a good one. So I got to see a couple interesting things. Widow's Bay is amazing. All right. Oh, Hokum was so good. Hokum was so good, and I think it kind of got quickly forgotten because Obsession came out, as well as to some degree Backrooms, and there's a lot of conversation about that. Young guys, YouTubers. Obsession is fantastic, but Hokum is also really, really good and creepy. I liked Hokum a lot. That was just flat out scary. Oh, geez, if that Matt was Maddie, he was telling me to watch that too, along with a few other friends. I didn't talk to Maddie, our friend Maddie, lately, so it must have been somebody else. Sorry. Oh, did Red Letter Media talk it up? Nice. Maybe they did. I knew I heard about it somewhere, and I kind of forgot where. Must have been Red Letter Media. Favorite original movies that have come out this year? Yeah. Hokum and Obsession, Nirvana, the band, the movie. If it counts as original because it's not like a remake, but this is an adaptation. Project Hail Mary, I thought was very good. So those four. Was Marty Supreme this year or last year? Because I'd put Marty Supreme as a very, very good movie, but I honestly forget whether that was like January or December. But those are some. I did not see that. That is really disappointing and depressing. And I'll be honest, I don't think it'll work long term. Yeah, great movie. So yeah, Hokum, Obsession, Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, Project Hail Mary, and if it came out this year, I'd count Marty Supreme. I haven't read Ben 10. I'm impressed and happy for what do you call it, for Dynamite, that they've got such a hit on their hands, because people are definitely reading it. But I never saw the cartoon. I was just too old, and either in work or college or something, so I've never seen it, and so it's sort of a blind spot for me. It's not something I would really know a lot about, but I'm glad to see that it's resonating with a bunch of people. That's always good for comics. Yeah, it seems like they've got a good hit on their hands with that one. Oh, okay, then that's technically last year. I won't count that one then. I still haven't seen that one. If it comes to a streaming service that I have, I'll check it out. Oh, you mentioned 3 movies. I didn't realize that. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die was the one I was talking about. Oh, I did see Send Help. Send Help was pretty good. I liked it. I'll get to I Love Boosters. I like it's Bootsy Riley, I think it is, that directed that. Send Help was fun. Send Help was definitely fun. Somebody spoiled the drama for me, so it kind of like bumped it down on my list, because I won't say or hint at what it is, folks, but it all hinges on a certain twist or a certain plot element, and once you know that, it might suck some of your enjoyment out of it. No kidding. Sheep Detectives was surprisingly good. I'll keep that in the back of my mind then. Seemed like it was aimed so much at kids that like maybe not for me, but okay. I do trust your opinions a lot, Mike. So thanks. Sorry, I'm just sort of noodling around on tiny little details. I'm just having fun playing with what I'm trying to represent as like mostly worn out concrete and stuff like that. I don't know if that's coming across or not, but yeah, having fun with it. Yeah, I don't think any of the Men of Action guys make anything off of Ben 10. I think it was all done as work for hire. It was a topic earlier tonight, yeah. Wasn't planning on it. I mean, it's still got a lot to do to like be considered complete, but maybe tell you what is when I finished this anniversary episode, I was giving some serious thought to auctioning off the Jaws manga, because I actually do have 2 copies and it's super rare. Plus, people like Jaws, but it's super, super rare. So I might auction this off, and if that goes well, maybe I'll auction off some of my original art. Look at how the emphasis on this is all just like on the absolute horror and violence. You know, it's not really about the tension in this. That's what's interesting to me. I think this will be really fun to talk about. Anyway. Oh, X-Men 97 is coming up? Yeah, Alien. If you look down at like the sort of ticker, those were all the topics and stuff. I have, but not lately. I have drawn a Xenomorph. Never saw Yanu, but I hear it's very good. It got really good reviews. Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that'll pretty much do it for this show. I think I talked about everything that I saw. I hate saying but I was just trying to think if there's anything else that I did this week or that's comic book related. Don't think so. Boy, I keep wanting to do one of those, and just realistically, I have not had anywhere near the time. Yeah, if you don't know what Dow is asking about, I've done like 3 or 4 of these live streams where anybody that has, an independent or self-published comic, a crowd-funded comic could come onto the live stream. We talk for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And the last one I did was like 8 hours. So I realized, oh my gosh, if I'm going to do this, I can't just do it for like 2 or 3 hours at the end of the night, because that's not fair to everybody. I have to do it on I have to dedicate essentially a day, and I have not had anywhere close to a day that I could give up because, I've got a day job. I'm trying to get episodes out weekly. If I had any extra time beyond that, what I'd really prefer to do with my time is make my own comic. And then if I could, but they are fun to do. I love getting to talk to people about their original comics that they're passionate about. So I'd love to do one, but I don't know when I can realistically fit something like that in. It's going to be so tricky. Chrissy and I have done a few little things together before. One of my dad's birthdays, I drew a sort of a caricature of him, and then she turned that into a painting because she's a painter. And then we've done 24-hour comic book day together. Like we each did our own comic, but that was something. A couple little things like that. My favorite 90s Frank Miller Dark Horse book. I would say probably Sin City, but Martha Washington's fantastic, and I would like to do an episode about it. I didn't know that the seasons is ending at 13, but I did think that Rick Remender had a finite ending for it, so that makes sense. Boy, when we did it, Mike, it was a long time ago. I don't know if they still do it. I would love to still do that someday. If there was a 24-hour comic book day, that's the kind of thing where I'd try to clear my schedule to do something like that. Like maybe I'd use, for instance, a vacation day to give up one of my day job work days and do 24-hour comic book day. That's something I would love to try again. I think it would be such a challenge. If you don't know, folks, it's literally where you have somewhere that's going to host you and you try to draw a 24-page comic, if you can, in 24 hours, or in other words, roughly a page an hour. It's really tough. Has nobody talked about Martha Washington? I do feel like I need to talk more about Frank Miller at some point, and I've never really talked about Dave Gibbons other than in the context of talking about Watchmen. I would consider that. Oh, I won't watch that movie, but I know what it's about. It sounds disgusting. Yeah. It's about like this guy, if you don't know, folks, Uwe Boll, terrible filmmaker. Like I've watched some of his movies. They're legit bad. They're legit confusing and not good. I don't care for them. But his new movie is called something like Citizen Vigilante, and it's all about a guy going around killing immigrants that are like doing crimes. And people were like, oh, so it's sort of like being a satire. And Uwe Boll, like with no one interviewing him, like posted on social media, like, no, I hate immigrants. Like, this is serious. I just hate them. And you're like, what? What? Let's see. I only ever got to 17 to 18 pages both years I did it, but I do it again. I think one year I got to 24 pages, and one year I also got to something more like 18 or something. And both of them are pretty rough. I think I could do better now. Maybe I didn't maybe I didn't read the third Martha Washington miniseries then. I don't really remember that. It's been a long time since I read it in general, actually, so I should read that again. I've never heard of that one. That one's new to me. Gonna turn off my little extra camera there. I think I'm done drawing for now. I'm gonna wrap up soon. But I appreciate all the comments and the jokes and even just being here and watching. So thank you. If you haven't, maybe you consider hitting the like button down below. That'll like make it more likely for other people to check it out once it's sort of on demand. And I'll go add chapters in a little bit. He's a legit bad person. I don't think he's a good person. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I guess if it's not coming to me, then it wasn't that important. And if it does come to me, I could always talk about it next week. Let me think. Do we already know what comics are coming out this coming week? I'm going to take a quick look at that before I wrap this stream up, because I'm curious. Did my comic shop post what they are? Nope, they didn't post yet. Darn. I don't know what's coming out this week then. Okay. Well, Ultimate Endgame and the Ultimate Finale both come out. I'll definitely be getting those. I don't know how it's going to sort of pull out of where it is and give me a satisfying conclusion. Although I do like Dennis Camp, so maybe he'll surprise me. That would be good. House of Dragon. You know, I only watched a few episodes of season 1. It didn't really hook me the same way A Song of Ice and Fire did. Anyway. All right, folks. I'm going to take off. It was awesome talking to everybody. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. You know, good mental health, good eating, good exercise, good hard work. And let your creative spirit fly. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you real soon. Bye.